Hey everybody, I'm back. Episode 2 of Spider Does Things, the show. This is the grown-up version of my podcast. I've got the other one, which is the Let's Talk About This. And that one's for whole families, for like the kids and for everything, so my daughter can listen to that. This is for the adults in the room. And I got a lot of stuff to talk about. I don't know how much time I'm going to fit into this. I'm trying to find a co-host, by the way, so it's not just me just blabbering on to you. I think it would be more interesting if I had another person to throw ideas back and forth with and to engage in some casual debate. I don't want somebody who's just going to flat out agree with everything I say. But I also don't want somebody that's just going to be argumentative and we're going to be diametrically opposed to everything. Right? But we got a lot of stuff to talk about. It's been a busy season since the last episode. When was the last episode? It was like a month ago, wasn't it? I'm going to take a look. I meant to record this sooner, and I didn't get to it, just because I had so much stuff going on. This is going to be kind of a sporadic, I'll get to it when I get to it kind of podcast, I think, which might throw off a lot of people, but I don't know. Let's see, my last one was 2 weeks ago. Was when I streamed it last. In October. So it's now November of 2024. It's November 7th as of this recording. 2 days ago, well, a day or so ago, because right now it's like midnight on the 7th, so technically it's still, I don't know how you quantify time, but I haven't gone to bed yet, so that means it's still Wednesday for me, even though technically it's Thursday. Time is kind of fluid for me. But the election was a day or so ago. The United States national election for President, Senate, House, for 2024. And I'm going to get to that later. And I'm going to try to approach that in a way that's not going to deliberately irritate a bunch of people. I don't want to go into it. It's a controversial subject just because it is. We've made it that way, unfortunately. But I'll get to that a bit later. I'm going to start off. With what I've done so far up until this point. My last show was in early to mid-October, and I was leading up to my daughter's birthday. And she had her birthday at the end of October. She went trick-or-treating twice. I'm kind of munching on some M&Ms right now from that. That's the dad tax. And she had a good time. She got a lot of candy. She has enough candy to last her as desserts for the next, half a year, at least, if not more. And she's 10 years old now. It's a ridiculous time in my life to have a child. 10 years. First and only, if some of you remember. It's my first child, my only child. Not going to have any more. One was enough. It's enough to keep track of. I went almost nuts just trying to raise this one up until this point. But she's good. She's smart. She does all kinds of drawing. And she's gonna have some people on their toes when she gets older. So I did that. I found out my hot water tank is leaking. So that's fun. So I have to turn it on and turn it off periodically so it doesn't flood the basement until I can replace it. I turn it on so I have hot water for a shower. Go back down, shut it off, pour out a bucket of water that's leaked into. All that fun stuff. And I have a cat that has a urinary tract infection. So, he's on medicine now. He's been on medicine the last several days. And he's improving. I think he'll pull through, which is always good. This time of year has always been kind of difficult for me with pets. I've lost more pets around this time of year than any other time of year. It's really kind of disheartening for a pet owner. But he's doing well. He's an old boy. He's like 15 years old. But he's got spunk. So he'll make it. The medicine seems to be working. So. And we're gearing up towards Thanksgiving season. And if you've listened to any of my other material, you know I'm not really big into holidays. I don't really do that. Like, my daughter did trick-or-treating and Halloween and stuff. I didn't do a whole lot with all that. I haven't participated in holiday celebrations in, I don't know, maybe 2 decades, to be honest. Once I moved out of my folks' place and went out on my own, I kind of left that by the wayside, moved on in other directions. So, I don't really do Thanksgiving on my own, but my family always does a Thanksgiving meal and a get-together, and it's a time to take my daughter over so that she can see the family members she doesn't always get to see. So that's what we're going to do. Oh, pardon me, goodness. There's dinner. Creeping back up on me. So we're going to do that. I don't think I'm going to have another episode of this before then. I might not have another episode of this until after Christmas. I don't really do Christmas either. But I'm going to be home by myself on Christmas because my daughter and her mom, they go out to family around Christmas time. And they'll probably do that, and I'll probably stay at home. And maybe I'll do like a Christmas episode. I don't know. I haven't figured that out yet. I haven't thought that far out in advance. But we got that going on. The weather it's been wet today. It rained today for the first time in like a couple of weeks. So we got a lot of rain. It's getting cold out there. Today was in the 60s. It was like 70s yesterday, but it's been routinely down into like the 50s. As far as, that's in Fahrenheit for those of you in overseas listening in. Or not overseas necessarily, but outside of the U.S. Any place where they use Celsius and centigrade other than here. So 50 degrees for us is relatively cold here in Ohio. It's getting cooler. So that's what's been going on with me. I'll tell you, I don't watch a lot of TV. You folks know that. I've said it before. But Netflix has, and this is not a product or a service endorsement. I'm not sponsored by Netflix or anything like that. I'm not getting any money for talking about them. So in case anybody wonders, it's all good to go as far as that goes. But on Netflix, they've got season 2 of a show called Ancient Apocalypse. It's more like a mini-series, I guess. It's got like, I don't know, 7 to 10 episodes. I haven't counted them this time. But it's put together by Graham Hancock. He's a mainstream scientists call him a pseudoscientist because he's got theories and things don't quite match up with the accepted terminology and the accepted time frame of different things. And I don't want to say narrative because everybody says narrative and I get irritated about it. Narrative and a little mini rant here. I get irritated with certain buzzwords and whether they're considered buzzwords by the broader public or not. I call them buzzwords because they're popular terms that people pick up and they use on the regular basis, and they seem to be like used everywhere out of nowhere for several years. The dog outside agrees with me. But narrative is one of them. Control the narrative. So-and-so's narrative. There's places where it makes sense, but there's a lot of times where people just use it for any kind of anything going on. It's, oh, well, the narrative is that such and such is a big old jerk. Well, that's not really a narrative. That's just a descriptor. Gaslighting is another one. Everybody always says gaslighting for everything. If you use your opinion in a way that people think is an attempt to override theirs, it's gaslighting. It's always gaslighting. It's irritating. Gaslighting. Empath. Everybody says they're an empath anymore. No, I don't think you are. I think you just know how to read a room. If you go into a room and the vibes are weird, I think you just have a good way of reading a room. That's a good skill to have. Doesn't make you an empath. You can't see energy patterns and things like that. I don't know. Mini rant. That's my mini rant over. But anyway, Graham Hancock, he's got this show. And I watched the first season. It's called Ancient Apocalypse. If I haven't said that already, I'm going to say it again. Ancient Apocalypse on Netflix. And it focuses on a theory that he has about a time on the planet called the Younger Dryas, okay? And some of this might go over your heads if you're not into this kind of stuff the way that I am. It's a time period around the end of the last ice age where they snapped really warm and then they snapped really cold again before the ice age was over. It was like a whip snap. Like things were warming up because the ice age was ending, but then abruptly things got really warm really fast. So a lot of things melted and a lot of water came up over everywhere. And then it got really cold again abruptly because it hadn't been, the temperature was restabilizing. It wasn't supposed to abruptly heat up to that extent. It was supposed to be a gradual, as nature intends and things like that. And there are theories. Graham Hancock is one of the proponents of this theory. That little whip snap where things melted a little bit abruptly. The theory is that that's where a lot of the ancient world's flood myths came from. Like the Noah's Ark stuff and various other things. The theory is that that's where they came from. That there was a lot of localized flooding across large portions of the world. So it wasn't like a global flood, because nobody was around globally. You couldn't hop in a helicopter and fly around and see the whole globe. They weren't that numerous, or at least they weren't that traveled. But in various locations where ice melt from a glacier would have affected an area, you would see it as, well, there's water all as far as I can see, so it must be the whole world must be flooded. So he talks about that theory in the first series, in the first season. He focuses mostly on places like in India and Mesopotamia and in Africa and Europe, places like that from that part of the world, right? Season 2 focuses mostly on North and South America and the various Pacific islands and things like that. Like they go into Easter Island and they go into a few other places. And there's most of this is stuff that I already had read about. I know a lot about this stuff because I did a lot of studies back in the day into various history of this kind of thing, and I was really always interested in it. I think the whole idea, his theory, is that a comet entered our system and broke apart, and at all the impact spots, it caused enough global temperature shift temporarily to do that whip snap of the abrupt warming and the glaciers melting and then the cooling afterwards, okay? And his theory is that because of that, there had been a big civilization around at the end of the Ice Age that had been riding the whole thing out that got swallowed up by the water. Now, you can take that whichever way you want. I mean, you can believe that or not. There's a lot of interesting evidence as far as all that's concerned. I think it's real compelling. I think it's super interesting. And there's more actual scientific evidence that there were impacts around the time geologically that he says this stuff happened. The issue that a lot of people have is they have problems with his time frame. They have issues that we haven't found enough to indicate a prehistoric civilization of a certain magnitude and various other things like that. And I get that, because I deal in evidence. I don't deal too much in conjecture. I don't deal too much in what if or where, that sort of thing. I deal in hard facts. And I don't want to upset any people with all this when I go into this little statement about it, but that's what threw me off about the whole, the Me Too thing that was out a couple years back. There was a lot of people that said, hey, this person did this to me, and this person did this to me, and this person did this to me. And yeah, I don't want to diminish anybody's experience. If somebody did something to you, that's terrible. That sucks. And you should get restitution for that. But there was a lot of people that just came up saying things, and there's no evidence. And I know a lot of people will say, well, there's too much time has passed. Of course there's not going to be any evidence, but we shouldn't let justice go unanswered. Well, sure, but you still have to be able to prove it. You can't have justice without evidence. As much as you want to. As much as you want there to be justice, you have to have evidence. That's how these things work. I'm all for prosecuting people who have done terrible things. I am 100% for doing that. If you have the evidence. You have to have the evidence. Because if you don't, if you just start prosecuting people based on what's being said and what's being remembered, then unscrupulous people can use that later on because precedent will be set. And that did happen a few times during that movement. There were a few times where people were discredited, where they said, oh yeah, such and such, somebody did this to me in 1965. And then it ended up that they didn't. And lives were ruined on both sides. And I sympathize with people and I empathize with people. Like I said, if you do something terrible to a person, you deserve to be caught. You deserve to face the ramifications of your actions. But it has to be able to be proven. Even if everybody assumes that it happened, if people are like, yeah, that guy's like a scumbag, he's always been a scumbag, and there were always stories that he was doing these things, unless you can prove it, you can't bring that against a person. People will say, yes, we can, and yes, we will. And whatever. But that's a subversion of the law. Okay? It just is. Like, the law is very specific on a lot of different things. That's why it's the law. Right? The law has to be black and white. Even if there's gray areas to different things like morality and whatever, the law has to be black and white, or else it doesn't work. It doesn't function. Either something is against the law or it's not. And if there's an unlawful law, which does happen a lot, you get a lot of dictatorships in cultures, then it's the duty of the people to work on getting those laws changed and changing their society. Because if a law is not helpful to the people, then it's not a good law. I don't have the perfect answer to all that. A lot of people say, well, if you're so smart, how do we make sure that only the good laws get through? Well, I don't have a way to do that. Human nature being what it is, you got a lot of bad people in the world. You got a lot of naturally bad people. Human nature will always produce bad people. I don't mean to say that every single person is a bad person, and that's your human nature. I'm just saying it's a consequence of being people. Human nature happens. You can't control that as much as you want to. You can't legislate that. You can't moralize it and sweep it under the rug. Okay? People are people. And that's how it is. And I guess that's a good segue into another kind of controversial topic. I kind of was like, I want to talk about this on the show, but I want to try to talk about this in a way that people don't come at me being mad and come at me being like, oh, you said this about this, and I'm mad at you, and you're a terrible person, you're getting canceled and whatnot, because I think that's all goofball behavior. You know, it's fine not to like what people say. It's absolutely fine. You just turn them off and you move on. I'm not going to get 1 million people listening to what I have to say and all of a sudden changing their perspective and then being like, that's right, we're going to do what he says. I'm not an influencer person. I'm just a guy with a radio show here talking about things. Okay? But I'd be remiss, this being a grown-up show, if I didn't talk about this very grown-up subject, which was the 2024 election here in the United States. And before you get into it, no, I am not going to tell you who I voted for. If I even voted at all, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you any of that, because that's none of your business. And that sounds really rude of me to say, but it's true. I don't want to know how you voted. It's none of my business. It's not my business to know who you voted for. If you're proud of it, that's fine. That's cool, whatever. You can be proud of whatever you want to do. But it's not my business to know that. I'm not going to ask you who you voted for ever in any election. And if you ask me, I'm just going to say that's not your business. And I'm not going to tell you. Because it's not your business. And I'm going to get flack for this. I know I am. And people will say to me, well, if you knew you were going to get flack, maybe you shouldn't have said it. But it's important to say. Whether you agree that I should have said it or not, it's important to say. A person's politics are their own business. And nobody should hate on somebody else because of who they voted for or what they follow. Unless they're out in the street. Like, if you're wearing swastikas and you're out in the street and you're trying to round up people of certain ethnicities, you're a bad person. Right? You should definitely be arrested, or you should definitely be... something should be put a stop to. Right? But you having the ideology, if you're keeping it to yourself, that just makes you who you are. There are a lot of really crappy ideologies out there. You got Nazism, you got different things. They're very hateful things, but if you keep them to yourself, fine. You believe what you want. You keep them to yourself, you don't use those to hurt somebody else. What's anybody going to do about it? Fine, whatever. If you go out and publicize it and you make life difficult for other people, then yeah, you deserve to get taken down a notch. Because that's not what they're there for. They're not there for you to go out and cause trouble for people. They're for you to try to use, not to try to use, but to try to get legislation and things that conform to your beliefs. And if you got crappy beliefs, people are going to shoot those down. Probably. Maybe they won't. It's not the 1930s anymore. It's not the 1940s. But, things still happen in different countries. But nothing happens without the majority. And that's another thing I want to get into. I got to get into this. For this election, by the time this is out, you'll already know that Trump won the election. He won the Electoral College, and he won the popular vote. I know this is going to upset a lot of people. It's going to upset a lot of people. I'm not trying to rub salt in the wound. I'm not trying to be like, yay for Trump. I'm not saying that. I didn't vote for him. I didn't vote for Kamala either. I'm not going to tell you any more than that, though. I'm not going to tell you if or when or who I might have voted for. But it wasn't for those two. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, it's your fault that Kamala lost then because every vote matters. No, because the Electoral College is really the only vote that really matters. And that's mostly not affected by your vote. A lot of states do base their electoral votes off of the popular vote, but they don't have to. And they don't tell you that. There are laws that say if you vote against the popular vote and you're an elector for the Electoral College, then it's illegal. But you know what the penalties are? It's like a fine. It's not jail time. It's not they're going to force you to change your vote to conform. It's like a fine. And anybody in one of those political positions has plenty of money to cover the fine. So the only real way to make sure that you're making a difference in any election is to make sure the people you put up locally and in your state are the people that you want and people that you trust. Because those are the people voting in the Electoral College. You don't know if they're going to base their vote off the popular vote. You assume they will in a lot of states, but they don't have to. And the punishment for not doing so is not very severe. So the only way to be sure that you can make sure that your vote counts is to vote for your representatives, your senators, your governors, your congresspeople. Okay? Because those are the people really making the decision. And that's true. That's not me just making stuff up. Go back, study your civics, do your social studies, go back to elementary school. That's what it is. Those are the people in the Electoral College. That's why somebody can win the popular vote but lose the election if they lose the electoral, right? I'm going to sneeze. I'm going to sneeze again, I think. Hold on. Excuse me, pardon me. But that's how that works. That's how a person can lose the popular vote and still win an election. Because they win the Electoral College. Because people went against their popular vote and voted the way that they thought was best. And these are the people that you put into power in your state. You put them into power so that they represent you. You have to make sure that you pick the right people to represent you. That's all there is to it. So, in this instance, Trump won both the electoral and the popular vote. And that says something. That does say something about where we are as a country. And I'm going to try not to say anything positive or negative because I'm not commenting on the candidates. people have their own thing, and whichever one if I was going to side with one over the other, I'd make a bunch of enemies, then make a bunch of friends. Or maybe I'd just make all enemies. Who knows? I don't care. But the popular vote, over 50% of the people living in the United States who vote, because not everybody votes, but of the people who vote, over half, by a smidge, like it was 51% by point something or other, they voted for Trump. And a lot of people on the other side, they can't understand it. They're like, why? How can there be that many people that like the guy? And who knows? Maybe they don't like the guy. Maybe they just don't like the other person. Because we've seen that the other way around. A lot of people voted for Biden, not because he was the best choice, but because they didn't like Trump. And that's true. That's not me saying anything negatively about Biden. That's just saying a lot of people voted that way. A lot of people got into their head to do blue no matter who. Right? You've heard the slogan before. I'm not making that up, and I'm not saying anything bad about it. I'm just saying it as a fact that a lot of people voted that way. People voted that way this time, too, but not as many. Because a lot of people felt kind of thrown out of the process when Biden dropped out and Kamala moved up to take the spot. Or Kamala, or what, I don't know exactly how to say it. I've heard it multiple ways from multiple news, and I'm not trying to be deliberately insulting if I'm pronouncing it wrong. So let me just say that. I'm not trying to be like funny, like, oh, I'm pronouncing the name wrong. It's not a joke. I'm not trying to be silly. Okay? So let's not be offended about that. But over half the country that votes voted for Trump. And there's a really simple reason for that. It's kind of an ugly truth that people don't want to admit. And it's the same thing that happened in 2016. It's that more people who live here in the United States are exactly like Trump than they are otherwise. They just don't have his millions of dollars. But their attitudes, their outlooks, their beliefs, the way that they do things in their neighborhoods, in their towns, the way that they act online, more than half the country, even more than that, honestly, but a lot of people don't vote. The majority of the United States are people just like Trump. And you can take that whatever way you want to. You can take it as a bad thing. You can take it as a good thing. You can take it positive or negative, however you want to take it. I'm leaving it broad. But it's something you have to confront, that these people... And I also don't like to... I don't want to come off like these people, as if it's like a separate class of people. I don't like the divide. I don't like saying these people, them versus us versus them. I don't like to do that. But the bulk of the nation is more like Trump than we want to admit. And if you want to change things, if you think that's a bad thing, and you want that to change, you got to go out and talk to the people, and you can't insult them. You can't go out there and say, well, if you're with Trump, then you're obviously this kind of a person. Just like the other side, you don't want them to paint you like that. Because the other side, both sides do this. They say, oh, you're voting for so-and-so? You're one of those people. You're a deplorable, or you're a whatever, or you're this. It reminds me of an ad. And I laughed because it was so stupid. It was such a stupid way of phrasing. And again, I don't want to impugn on anybody's particular beliefs in this. But it was a belief. It was an ad from here in Ohio, because we were slammed with ads. Slammed with ads here in Ohio for politics. Oh my goodness. Every single ad on YouTube. everything on TV and streaming. But most of them were attack ads against Sherrod Brown. And Sherrod Brown lost to Bernie Moreno. Bernie Moreno was the Republican candidate. Sherrod Brown was the incumbent Democrat. But the ad... Oh, it's such a stupid slogan. The ad for Bernie Moreno targeting Sherrod Brown, at the end of each one, it says, Sherrod Brown is for they, them, not you. And I'm like... And I understand people have the thoughts about the trans community and things, and I don't even want to dip too much of a toe into that because I don't have experience with that. I don't have a voice for that. I can't speak for a person like that because I'm not, and so I can't validate that one way or the other because it'd be disingenuous. But I know there's been the big talk about the pronouns and about all that other kind of stuff. And the ad, it was just such a stupid way to end the ad. He's for they, them, and not you. It's when you think about it, it's such a dumb counter slogan. It's such a dumb counter slogan. If somebody wants to be addressed they, them, whatever, fine, sure, okay. You whatever you want, I don't care. I don't go up and address people in a gendered way to begin with. Like, I don't go up and be like, hey, woman, if I'm talking to somebody who might be female. I might go up and say, hey, man. But I don't mean that in a hey, man sort of way. I mean it in a 90s way, how people use dude. Because I use dude, the word dude, for male, female, whoever. One of my best female friends, I call her dude. She doesn't care. That's how she is. She doesn't care. She's like, oh yeah, whatever. So I'll be like, dude, whatever. And it's like, I don't gender these things. These things don't have gender attachments. They don't have attachments unless you want them to have attachments. So it's silly to turn, like, the pronoun thing into a whole weapon. Like, I don't know. The whole thing flies over my head. And maybe it's because I'm not in the know about stuff like that. I'm going to get people who tell me I need to be educated, who I need to educate myself. I'm just, I'm good. I don't need to do that because I'm not going out of my way to speak disrespectfully to people. I'm not going out of my way to dehumanize people. I'm not going out of my way to see that, oh, you don't want to be addressed by she or he or whatever. Well, obviously you're an animal of some kind. I don't think that. I don't go out of my way to address people like that. I don't. That thought doesn't enter my head because why would you mistreat a person like that you may never have even met before until that day? Like, I don't know. But that leads us to the next part of the show. All this is connected, right? You guys know I'm into games. I'm the gamer. I'm the gamer guy. I do my game streams on Twitch nightly, usually late. If you want to tune in and watch, it's twitch.tv/DMGRGN. All those go up on the YouTube channel anyway, so if you're watching on YouTube, you're watching on Spider Does Things, so you've seen them all. But if you want to watch them live and participate in some chat, I occasionally do that. But as of this recording, the new Dragon Age game has just come out over the past several days. It came out either the 30th or the 31st of October. Dragon Age Veilguard. Or maybe it's the Veilguard. I'm still unclear on whether there's a the in it or not. Now, I played both the first, well, I say the first, but now all three of the existing Dragon Age games. I played Origins, I played Dragon Age 2, which didn't have a tagline, and I played Dragon Age Inquisition, which was the third one. And each one is kind of different. The first one was a lot more. It came from the developer is BioWare, who I know from back in the day as the people who did Knights of the Old Republic, Star Wars games. Okay? So they did those. I was a huge fan. They did First Dragon Age, which is a lot like those in style and play. Just in a fantasy setting versus a space opera setting. Dragon Age 2 was a different style. More action. More of a hybrid action kind of thing. And Inquisition was even more like that. It was less RPG and more action-oriented. And there was more your choices matter, that kind of stuff. Well, Dragon Age 4, it's Veilguard, is out now. I haven't played it yet, as of the recording. And while I bought all of the other games, I don't think I'm going to buy this one. Now, hear me out before you get mad and indignant. Because a lot of people are saying, I'm not going to buy this game because it has this in it, and it has this in it, and I'm not basing my choice on various controversial stuff, but I'm going to talk about those. I'm going to wait and see if it comes out on Game Pass, because I play on Xbox. I'm a Microsoft player. I'm going to see if it comes out on Game Pass so I can try it. And if it's good, then I'll end up buying it after the fact, I'm sure. But I'm seeing a lot of things about it. One of the big things that throws me off is that they've already said it's only been out like a week. And they've said that they're not going to add any extra content to it, no DLC. And on the face of it, that's not really a problem. Not every game needs to have DLC. But if you're going to make it a point to say it's not going to have any in a series that usually has some kind of story expansion, it means you've either wrapped up the entirety of the series and there doesn't need to be any more, or you don't want to spend the money for some particular reason. And it could be because of the controversy involved. And of course that comes down to the pronouns and the non-binary stuff, because that's the big controversy going on with it right now. And they've had a little bit of that in every one of the games. In all of the Dragon Age games, there's been a little bit of alternative sexualities and things like that. They had a trans character in Dragon Age Inquisition. And it was alright. I didn't feel like it was like... So, there are people who, anytime they find that in a game, they're going to feel like, oh, it's being pushed on me. It's pushy, it's pushy, it's pushy. I don't look at games like that. If something comes up in a game where, oh yeah, this character is this way. If it just happens to be that way, then okay. That's fine. If it's just naturally part of the flow of the game, fine, whatever. I'm not worried about it. Inquisition was like that. It was just, it came up. If you talk to a particular NPC often enough of your own volition, not part of any main quests, not part of any particular, like, this is a requirement in the game to proceed, you have to talk to this person this many times. It didn't have that. This was all optional. You could learn about this person and you found out, oh, this is a trans person. Okay. Big deal. They're a trans person. Who cares? You know, it didn't bother me. It was all optional. If it really did bother me to some extent, just don't talk to that person. Right? Don't do that little dialogue. Be that way. But it didn't bother me, so whatever. The new one, based off game clips, is they've made the gender decisions of one of the main people in your party the centerpiece of some of the main quest lines, in that you can't skip them or bypass them or avoid them, or they're not optional. And you know what? I'm not saying that they should be optional necessarily. I'm not saying anything about diminishing anybody. But it's a game about fighting dark spiritual demons. It's a fantasy game about fighting dark spiritual demon creatures, the Darkspawn, right? It's not particularly, you can have, there's plenty of romance options that's built into every Dragon Age game. They have romance options. But none of the romance options are the centerpiece to the game. And in this one, it seems like the whole gender discussion is a central part of the game. And I'm not going to be like, oh, that's gross, that's disgusting. I don't feel that way. But I don't play games that focus on that because that's not an area that interests me. And I hope that that's neutral enough that people don't think I'm trying to slam anything, because I'm not. I don't play games where... I don't play romance games, right? I would not play, by contrast, a game where the central theme is your character and other characters announcing their heterosexual normality or whatever. And I'm not saying that that's like the absolute, like, oh, are you saying that that's the only thing that's normal? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if that's like what they said in the game, that's not something that interests me. If there's a game out and the central main quest involves you doing a quest that reaffirms that marriage is between one man and one woman, I wouldn't play that game. I wouldn't play that, right? Because that seems like there's no reason. Why is that a focus? Right? If I want to play a romance, I'll play a romance. If I don't, I don't. I don't get into things that have those kinds of and I don't want to use the loaded terms like ideology or politics, because I don't mean it to be that strong as that, but that sort of storyline is not something I'm interested in. I play a fantasy game where you have swords and shields and axes and you fight demons to be that. I don't get into that to deal with gender problems and to deal with relationship woes. Right? I'm sure some people are still going to be mad. People are still going to be mad at what I said. And I'm there's no easy way to say it because people get mad about everything. And I'm, again, not trying to downplay your concerns. But I'm not into that kind of a game. I'm not into that kind of a story. I don't read those kinds of books. I don't... because I'm just not into it. And that's probably why I'm not going to buy Dragon Age Veilguard. Initially, at least. Because it seems like that takes up so much of the central part of the game that it pushes aside the struggle against the demons and the darkness and all that other kind of thing. Because that's the game I want to play. I want to play a game where you're battling against the evil and the forces of darkness and whatever, or, you know, that sort of high fantasy situation. I'm not in a game like if Halo. I'm a big fan of the Halo series, or I was. I'm kind of getting out of it now. But if Halo all of a sudden went on a tangent where there was some romantic subplot, I hate romantic subplots. I can't stand them. I don't like them. I don't like them in movies. I don't like them in games. It doesn't matter what the gender of the characters are, or whether they identify a certain way, or whether it's a straight or a gay or a non-binary or whatever relationship. That's not the kind of stuff I'm into. I'm equally as unlikely to play a game that focuses on all straight romance 100%, like, oh, every decision you make increases your straight romance, versus every decision you make influences your trans relationship. I'm equally likely not to want to do either one of those. Right? It's all equal in my mind. But I'm a pretty simple game player. I like to run in. I like to shoot things. I like to feel like I'm powerful in the game. And that's it. That's what games are for. They're fantasy. Not every game needs to be an immersive, gritty take on reality. But I'm not saying that there shouldn't be games like that. Because games are for everybody. So there should be plenty of games for people who want to have those things. I just won't play them. And that's fine, because clearly the game is not made for me. And it should be an easy decision to make. There shouldn't be any further controversy beyond that. There shouldn't be any reason for me to be mad. I shouldn't have to go out and, I'm going to protest this game because obviously they're shoving an ideology down my throat. No, because I just don't have to pay for the game. I can just choose not to play the game, and I'm good. And I move on to something else. And I think that people don't do that enough. People see, this game in this franchise that I really like, it's not up to my standards, and it's going away a direction that I don't want it to go. Now I'm angry, now I'm mad, just don't play the game. Go back and play the old ones. If you like the old ones so much, go play the old ones. I have plenty of old games that I play. I don't play Destiny 2. I play Destiny 1, because I've invested a lot of time in Destiny 1, but I won't play Destiny 2 because Destiny 2 sucks. Easy decision. Simple decision. Dragon Age up to Inquisition, I was mostly into. I've got my problems with both 2 and Inquisition, so it hasn't been a perfect ride through either one of them. And I probably won't play Veilguard necessarily, but maybe I will, in time. But if I don't want to, I just won't. I just won't play any more Dragon Age games. If they're all going in a direction I don't want it to go. That's fine. What difference does it make to me? They're obviously not for me. They're for other people. Let those people enjoy them. It's fine. I don't know. People get way too bogged down with this kind of thing. They let it affect their own personal lives when they don't need to. This stuff doesn't affect me, so I don't pay attention to it and I don't worry about it. I don't go out hating on it. I don't go out complaining about it. I don't get into chat rooms and get together with people and just talk badly about it. There's no reason to do that. Just let people be people the way they want to be. And as long as they're not forcing you into whatever they're trying to do that you're not into, then who cares? Right? I don't know. I don't see what's so hard about all that. But I don't know. That's me. I'm closing in almost an hour here, so I'm going to wrap it up. I had wanted to talk about WWE Crown Jewel because they had their latest PLE, Premium Live Event. It's not pay-per-view anymore. It's Premium Live Event in Saudi Arabia. And I've got some probably more controversial thoughts about that too. But I didn't get a chance to watch all of it. I watched the first match, the Bloodline match. I haven't watched the rest of it. So I'm probably going to save that for next show. So it's going to be behind because that was this past Saturday. And I'll probably have more to talk about once I get to that point. I don't know. I'm going to put this up on YouTube probably a few days after the fact so that everybody gets a chance to hear it on Spotify and do that kind of thing. And I don't know when the next episode is going to be. I'm not sure. Like I said, these are all kind of sporadic. They're as I come up and get the time. And I still have my other shows I got to do, so it's all kind of real up in the air. But look forward to the next one. If you liked this one, by all means, let me know. send me an email at uncannyspiritsclub@gmail.com. Once again, uncannyspiritsclub@gmail.com. If you want to send me opinions on the things that I talked about tonight, the election, Dragon Age Veilguard, all that stuff, by all means, but be civil, be nice. Do not come at me with a whole bunch of, you just don't understand the issue because you're a big dummy, you're a big blah, 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 blah. Don't make it a big racial, gendery thing, okay? I think I've been pretty clear in where I stand on everything, and I think I've been pretty respectful, to be honest. I've done my best. You know, you can't ask a person to do better than their best. But if you have thoughts and if you want to talk to me about things, I want to start reading fan emails or listener emails on the air. You don't have to, I can withhold your name if you want. I can keep them all anonymous. But I would like to tell people your thoughts and address you in segments on the show, because I think that's fair. I think you deserve to have your voice heard, if you want it to be. So send me an email. Give me your thoughts. Tell me what you think. If you've played Dragon Age Veilguard and you think it's the best game ever, tell me why. I'd love to hear it. I would love to hear it. Yeah. So that's it. I'm going to get going. It was good talking at everybody. And I will see you all next time when I see you. Have a good night.